isn't it? I'm very confused. I usually do this on a Tuesday or a Friday, so the fact that it's a Thursday has completely thrown me. It's Thursday. Happy Thursday. I hope you're all well. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Well, not completely different. If you've done my sessions before, a lot of the techniques we're going to be using, a lot of the stuff we're going to be doing is very similar, super easy. You can do it with materials that most people have access to, and if you don't, it's super cheap things. But what we're making is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I had a go, and I really loved making it. I thought it was really fun. I even made one with my daughter. She loved it. She's only 5 and she managed it as well. So this is something that you could do on your own if you need some peace and quiet. But also, it's a great thing to do with kids because they can do every single element of it, as can you. Super easy. So let me explain what we're doing. We are making there's loads of different names for it, but it's basically like a 3D card, I guess, like a greetings card. But they're often known as either tunnel cards or peekaboo cards. Hopefully some of you will understand this reference, but do any of you remember the Jolly Postman books? There was the Jolly Postman book. It was big in the 90s. I had both copies, and it was like a storybook, and it got stuff. You got like stuff in it, like letters. And one of them, I think it's the Christmas one, you get like basically like a concertina sort of organ, looks like an organ kind of card that you look through, and there's loads of different elements to it. That's basically what we're doing, but we're making ours out of like card and cutouts and collage. So I've tried to kind of precariously place these so that you can see them. It's not worked very well, so I'm going to do some sort of close-up so you can see. I've made 2, and I'll show you. I think I'll show you the green one because it's a bit easier to hold for some reason. But essentially, it is a card made out of lots of different bits of card that is constructed together to make it 3D, and so that when you look through it, you get all of that sort of 3D element to it. So you can see all the different bits sticking out at different levels and different widths, and I just think they look really effective and impressive. And honestly, it doesn't require any artistic skill whatsoever. Essentially, we're cutting and sticking, and yes, we are doing a bit of painting, but not in the way that you would think, unless of course you've watched other sessions that I've done before. But yeah, we're going to make one of these. It's really easy, I promise, but it looks amazing. My daughter's looks amazing. She's only 5 and she still managed it, and it looked incredible. And I think you can't really see from my camera angle, but it stands up quite neatly and nicely. And I think that's a showstopper for the mantelpiece. If you were making one I made mine for myself, but if you wanted to make one as maybe a Mother's Day card, I was thinking, because I had to remind my partner that it's Mother's Day soon. I love it when I, the mother, have to remind my family that it's nearly Mother's Day. So yes, that's what we're going to make today. And it's going to be super fun. So very quickly, I'll move those out of the way. The first thing that we're going to do, now I've done this before, where we have created sort of abstract painting using just paint and pens. But the main thing that you need for this is like an old store card. So either an old sort of shop card, or cardboard does work, but it's sort of a one-shot deal because the paint soaks into it. But you can use cardboard if you want to, but something plastic is better. So like a small ruler, things like that. And that's what we're going to use to create this sort of background. So what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves, now, if you've watched me before, you'll know I get very confused and there's things everywhere and I don't know what's happening. This will happen a lot today because there's lots of elements to what we're doing. So what you need is, essentially, you need A4 card, but then chopped in half. So we want lots of A5 pieces of card. Doesn't matter how thick it is. I'd say if you have super thick card, like this one's quite thick, that would be good for your back panel. And then you want slightly thinner card for your sort of concertinas and your frames. But if you only have thin card, then only thin card will work fine. I think the thicker it is, the harder it is to sort of bend and put into shape. But it's a good sort of standing one for the back. So you need to get yourself some A5 card. If you want to start with A4 and do your painting on your A4 first, that's fine. So you'll see here, I've sort of made a start on some A4 with the painting. And then later on, I can either use this to cut out shapes, or I can cut it in half to make my back panel. So let me just move these out of the way. I'm going to show you very quickly on this white piece of card how we're going to create this beautiful sort of abstract art, which has just got loads of texture, loads of depth, loads of mark making. What I would say is do yourself maybe 3 A4 pieces of card of this, because you can use part of it for your back panel and the rest of it to do cutouts for your shapes. So for example, you will see lots of leaves and sort of foliage, and that has all been used from cutting out from this lovely abstract painting. Now I'm quite worried about time for this one because I feel like this has got lots of elements, so I'm going to whisk through this as quickly as I can. So I'm going to do this bit really quickly because I have done a whole session based on this sort of painting before. It's really, really easy, and you can experiment however you wish. You don't have to do it the same way as me. This is just like a process for creating really beautiful kind of abstract mark making that you can use for anything, and it works with any sort of paint you've got, any sort of pens you've got. But if you do want to sort of watch a whole session on it, if you go onto the sort of Facebook page for the arts and crafts bit, my name's Rosie Johnson, and there should be a session which I think was called just like abstract, super easy abstract art, something like that, because that's what it was. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab some paint. I'm going to stand up and get some colours, and it's really, really, really simple. I've just got simple acrylic paint, really cheap acrylic paint actually. So this stuff, hang on, where's my camera? Here it is. So this stuff here, I could do it under here, couldn't I? This is from the range, and this is, I think, £2 for like a large tube, which is quite good for good acrylic paint. You don't need good acrylic paint. You can use whatever paint you like. You can use poster paint if you want. I just go with acrylic because it's quite pigmented, so it's quite a strong colour and it dries quickly. If you use oil paint, you've got no chance. Watercolour, again, it's like it involves water. I just want something that's quick and easy. So really cheap acrylic paint is fine, or poster paints is okay. And again, I like easy, no mess, no faff. I don't even put the paint on a surface, I put it straight onto the paper. So essentially, all I'm going to do is do a small blob of paint onto my card, and then I'm going to get my store card or ruler or whatever sort of plastic thing you have, and you're just going to scrape it across the page and make nice shapes. And all you're really doing is trying to make sure that the card no longer has paint on it. And once it's pretty clear, you can go in with another colour. And what happens is, because you've spread it so thinly over the paper with this card, is all of those colours will show through each other. So can you see that? As you go over the pink, you can still see the orange. And it's got this lovely marbled effect, which I really love. And I use this technique all the time. I do it for everything. I do like whole big art pieces of this. I think it's so much fun. And you can get experimental with it. I sometimes add glitter. You can add gold leaf if you wanted. You can throw anything you like at it. But at this stage, all we're doing is we're trying to create as much sort of colour as we can, varying colour. I try not to get paint on my thing here because I will need that later. And then I've got here, this is a metallic paint. Again, it doesn't need to be fancy, but if you add metallic into it, you're just adding extra depth and kind of, you know, this will shine nicely in the light, and you don't have to be careful or specific. You just go with how you feel. This is what I love about this sort of thing. Anyone's capable of it. There we go. And that's all you need to do, really. You can use as many colours as you like. You can use just a few. I've just used 3 colours there. So I've used my pink and orange and my metallic bronze, and that's going to look good. And then I'm going to set that to dry, and I will come back to it and add to it. So that's it. I know I've whisked through that really quickly, but I think you guys should go and experiment with it. Get yourself a table full of card, get yourself one of these guys and some paints, and just go for it. I think it's really exciting, and I really like that every time I do it, I notice different ways and different patterns make different marks. Lovely. So I'm going to go and put this on my radiator very quickly, although I have got some that I made earlier. So I'm going to put, where should I put the card? I'll put that on the radiator too. So you'll see here, I've basically created the same sort of thing. So I've used the same colours. I think I've got a purple in there, and I've also added some glitter. But this is a dry one. So what you do, you set that to one side, and whilst that's drying, there's other things you can be doing, but I'll show you that in a moment. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to add to your painting. And you'll see here, I've got loads of extra marks here. The way I look at it, you want like your biggest bit is your paint, because that's covering the whole paper. That's your full coverage. And then you want thick lines, and then you want thin lines. So you're getting really big pieces of colour, you're getting big patterns and really little detail patterns. They don't have to be hard to do, they can be scribbles. But when you then cut out shapes from this, it just makes everything look beautiful. So at this point, I've got myself some thick marker pens. So these are big Posca pens. So Posca pens are like acrylic markers, also known as like chalk pens. If you don't have access to these, absolutely fine. You can just use like a thick marker. I sometimes use like highlighter pens. Anything you've got, you just want a varying amount of different sort of pens and pencils. I'm going to go for big Posca pens. I've got some super cheap oil pastels. These were like £1 from the range, I think. And then I've got some like normal sort of highlightery pens. It doesn't have to be fancy. I'm going to start with my thick lines, and I'm just going to do some shapes. So I'll sometimes do some sort of overlapping circles, and then I'll go in with another colour. So now I've got a yellow, and I'll maybe do some lines, and then I'll go in with another colour. Let's go with this blue. And you're just creating patterns. You can do it however you like. You don't have to do it this quickly. You can really take your time with it if you want to. I'm just whisking through this bit so that I can actually teach you how to construct the card. Because if we miss that bit, it'd be pointless, wouldn't it? So I'm just going to do some quick marks. Nothing's wrong here. You can't go wrong at all. If you've got some really big ones, this big purple one, you just do some splodges. You're just covering the page, really. You're just making different marks. You can overlap it, you can cover up bits, doesn't matter, because this is all going to be chopped up anyway. And if it's not being chopped up, it's going to be stuck on top of it as well. Let's go in with some oil pastels. You can see I'm really not I'm not trying to create anything specific. You just want a different range of sort of motions with your hands. So circles, lines, zigzags. It doesn't matter if the colours blend into each other. So that'll do with that. And then we'll go in with we'll go very quickly with these sort of highlighter markers. Look, they sort of stand out nicely. You get lots of nice brightness there, and you're just trying to cover as much space as you can. Maybe going with this pink here, quick as you like. And this is great. This is why this is quite good to do with kids, because they will want to do this really quickly, and they absolutely can. And then you can take more time on your bit while they go crazy. Okay, so that's basically done. You don't need to do any more than that. You can go in with some pencil crayons. You could do really tiny lines. You could go with biros, however you feel. You just want as many layers as you possibly can, and they don't need to be neat, and they don't need to be special. It's going to look special when you cut it out, I promise. So now you've got some of your abstract art, you can put that to one side, and we can start to think about our construction. So I'm going to start. I've got myself a piece of A5 that I made earlier that's got lots of marks on it, and that's good to go. So A5, which is half of an A4, you want to sort of chop a few A4s into half. So this is going to be the back panel. So that's going to be this piece right at the back here that you can see the background of. And then you're going to get 2 more pieces of A5. So I've got slightly thinner card and I've gone for a green. And they're going to be your concertinas. And essentially you're just going to make them into fans. You're just going to fold them up. So the first thing I'm going to do though is just think about how I want this background to look, if I want to add to it. I'll probably stick lots of like leaves and foliage on it later, sorry. But at first I'm going to see if there's any kind of cutting and pasting I want to do with it. It's really hard to show you the backgrounds of these because they're 3D and I can't really like put the camera in them. So you might be able to see at the background of that. Can you see there's some like writing here? That's because I've used like an old book and I've just used a sheet of it and I stuck it on top. So you might want to do that sort of thing just to add even more depth. Janet, if you don't like random, because some people don't, it's too overwhelming, then you could do this as neatly as possible. If you're really good at like delicate, neat, fragile drawings and paintings, I still think you could probably make one that is would make Alan Alberg envious, who is the guy. I think it's Alan Alberg who did the Jolly Postman, but presumably if it was him that did it, he was the one who did the illustrations. So you could do one like that. I've seen loads online. This is like a really simple way of doing it, but if you Google or go onto Pinterest and sort of Google your 3D tunnel cards or 3D peekaboo cards, there's loads of different styles out there. And I think just the construction of it is all you need to pay attention to, and then you can put your spin on it however you so wish. So what I'm going to do is, what am I going to do? That's it. I'm going to get my bird book out. So this is a garden and field bird book, which I bought from a charity shop for I think £1. It might have been less than that. And I loved it because it's got loads of pictures of birds in that I can rip out and use in my work. So I love all this sort of like old written words as well. So we might use a bit of that. I think I've got some cutouts here that we could use. And essentially, if you are into collage, you can sort of collage some bits on there. So what I might do is I might stick this bit on, or that bit's got like an egg on it. What's that got on it? Well, I quite like this one. This one's quite nice. This is where I've sort of chopped it. So what I might do is I might rip the sides of them and I might stick that on the top there. This is where Rosie starts to get into a mess. And we might just decide where you're going to stick it. You're just sort of, again, you're just creating depth and layers. And I'm going to get myself just a Pritt stick glue. You can use PVA if you want. I would say if you're going to give this to somebody, or you've got to transport it in any way, then you might want to consider using PVA for your sticky outy bits, so your foliage and your leaves, just so that they stick better. I'm going to use Pritt stick, I think, for the duration of this, just because it's much easier. It's much easier to use. It's much quicker. I just think that some of these, like these bits on the front, that are sort of like your sticky outy bits, Pritt stick isn't going to hold it together quite so much. I mean, it's fine. This one's been absolutely fine. But if I was sort of taking it somewhere or giving it to someone, then they might fall off. So I would maybe go with a PVA if you want to be safe. What else have we got? I'm thinking I might put a little bit of this one. Do I have any sheet music? I thought I did. I usually use like old music sheet, like music paper. Oh, we'll stick to the birds. We'll stick to the bird pages. And again, we're just like doing however we feel. And we're sort of layering it up. Okay, nice. And then what you can do, if you so wish, is you could then go over that with your marker pens or your oil pastels or whatever you've got, just to sort of make it part of your piece. Like so. Maybe we'll go in with a marker pen. I do love this fluorescent pink. There you go. So now we're adding a bit more to it. So that's your background. I think at this point, I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm going to stick loads of foliage on it. And I'm not going to actually stick the construction together, but I'll just show you what's going to happen next. So I'm going to put that to one side, and I'm going to get myself 2 pieces of A5. This is a thinner card. This is going to be your concertina. Sorry, bash the camera. This is the side bits here. So we'll start creating the structure, but we're not going to stick any of it together. If we start sticking it together, it's going to be really hard to start putting things on here when there's like stuff going on around it. But I'm just going to show you this next bit. So you're just going to make this into a fan, essentially. So we're folding it. You don't have to be neat for this. All I would say is you kind of want your concertina to fold the same amount of times on each A5 card. However, saying that, I haven't actually been a very good advocate for that, because I didn't really do that with either of mine. It just makes it a bit easier to fit your panels in when you get to adding your layers, which will hopefully make sense. So again, I'm not being particularly neat. I've sort of gone with, as an approximation, what's that, about 2 centimeters wide maybe, but it can be whatever you like. And in fact, I've not even sort of done it very evenly, because we've got like a half a fold there, but it's fine. I would just say now at this point, when you do your first fold, if you just hold up your next piece of A5 to it and mark it, just so you know you've sort of got the same amount of folds. This will hopefully become clear when we start to put it together. Okay. This is really it. Once you've done these side bits, that's the side of your card, and then we're going to add some inserts, I would call them. You want some inserts and a front, and that's what we're going to do next. So those concertinas should hopefully be about the same. You want kind of the same amount of folds. So when we stand them up, if I stand them up, let's see, does that one, if we make them this mirror image of themselves, is that a mirror image of itself? I don't actually know. Who knows? But essentially, you want to be able to stick your panels in the same folds so that it doesn't kind of warp. It really doesn't matter too much. If it doesn't quite fit, it will still work. But that's kind of what we're going for. So they're your concertinas, and essentially they're going to sit, we're going to stick them on there like that, and we're going to put some panels in between them and at the front of them. So that's the next thing that we're going to do. So we're going to put these to one side very quickly, and then we're going to get, depends how many you want to do, but I've done 2 panels, so one in the middle and one at the front. I'm pretty sure the one Ramona made had 3 panels, so 2 in the middle and 1 at the front. So I'll just do 2 for now, because I think that looks fine. So you need 2 more pieces of A4. If you want to use coloured card, that would be great, because then it's just going to add a bit more texture to it. We're going to decorate them anyway. So let's go with, I'll go with these ones. I'll go with the green and the red. Now underneath me, I've got one of these cutting mats that's absolutely filthy because I use it all the time. The reason is I'm going to use a craft knife at this point. You don't need to, you can use scissors, but you'll see why I'm going to use a craft knife. It's because I'm going to be cutting a hole out of something. You don't need to use a craft knife, but if you do use a craft knife, please put something underneath your card so that you don't scratch your table or whatever surface you're on. But really, really simple. And actually, the reason I want to use a craft knife is because it's easier for you to see what I'm doing. If I was using scissors, it wouldn't be as obvious, but you guys can use scissors for sure. So I'm going to get myself a pencil, and I'm going to do 2 wiggly circles that go around the perimeter of the A5 paper. I'm going to leave myself a bit of a gap. I want it to be wiggly and sticky outy so that you can see it, and also so that we can stick things to it. So, and it doesn't need to be neat. We don't want it to be too close to the edge, because otherwise it won't hold very well when it's stuck to your concertinas. I don't know if you can see that mark on the red. It's quite dark, isn't it? Can you see that? Oh, it's a bit glary, isn't it? Well, you'll see in a minute when I cut it out. I'll do a little close-up so you can see. So you don't want it too close to the edge. If it was any closer than that, then it'd be very, very thin and it wouldn't be very structurally sound. Look at me using engineer terms. But also you don't want it to stick out too far because then you'd be covering your back panel when you're looking through. So you just want a nice wiggly border essentially. And then I'm going to go round and I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible, but I am aware that I'm using a knife. So please, if you are using a craft knife, do this carefully and don't go as quickly as me. But you can use scissors. You just need to do that thing that we learn at school where you sort of pinch the card, cut a hole there and make a start. You just don't want there to be a line around your frame. You don't want that to be cut out at all. And again, you don't have to be neat. Wiggly, wiggly. There you go, I've just gone over one of those wiggles there. And then hopefully, the only thing with craft knives I find is like where you stop and start always seems to be the bit that doesn't cut out very well. Okay, how are we getting on here? Oh, that'll do. Perfect. So now you've got that bit you don't need, but if you so wish, you could decorate this bit to use to cut out for leaves and foliage. So that's our first frame. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over so you don't see any of the pencil marks from where we drawn it. And I'm going to do this one, cut this one out very quickly as well. And then what we're going to do, and I might not spend too much time on this, but you guys definitely can. The way in which we decorated our first piece of card using all those different marks, we're going to do the same with the frame. The only thing we're not going to use is the paint because it'd be quite hard to sort of spread the paint over the frame. Also, with it being card, if you get paint on it, it's probably going to sort of like be wet and warp and not be too flat. So I'm just going to go in with all the marker pens and the crayons and the pencils and all that sort of thing and use that. So let's chuck them over there. Oh, it's getting messy. So yes, we've got our two frames and then essentially we're just going to go in again with all of our different pens and pencils, if I can get them out of the pot. There we go. So we'll start with the pink there and we're just mark making. We're just doing shapes, creating depth, creating different patterns. You can use whatever you like. You don't need to be neat. You just want kind of whatever you fancy. Let's go with like a yellow. And you kind of want it to overlap so it looks like it's kind of naturally like that. So again, if you've got like a cutting board or a piece of card underneath it that you don't want to get dirty, that would be handy. And I mean, I'm doing this like super quick. You can spend more time on this. You can be a lot neater, but you don't have to be, it doesn't have to look like anything. It doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to draw anything. You're just making marks. I'm trying to think if you see this one, you see it's just got, and also I think what I've done with this one, you can see some little like brown flecks here, bronze flecks. I'm not going to do that today because it's incredibly messy and I've got to get through this quickly, but I did just stick my finger in metallic paint and just rub it on with my fingers. So you can also do like finger painting. Doesn't have to be fancy. You can just smudge things on, you could stick things on, you could splat paint on it if you wanted to like dry your brush on it and let the paint splat. Anything like that is absolutely fine. Because we're going to be sticking stuff on it anyway. We just want it to not be a plain piece of paper. If you've done my sessions before, you'll know that I'm not a big fan of plain paper. I like it to be curved in lots of different patterns and things. So that's essentially what we're doing with the frames. I'll just do this one very quickly, just for the purposes of the kind of reveal at the end. Wow, how are we on past already? time flies when you're throwing paint at things, isn't it? I decided to throw that one on the floor. There we go. What else have we got? I mean, this always happens. I don't know if you've noticed, but I will endlessly talk about how I'm going to try and do things really quickly so that I can get through the session and not overrun. And then when it comes to choosing a colour for something, I'll just sit there and go, what colour next? I can't decide. Okay, let's go in with one more little bit of like oil pastel. Maybe do some scribbles. Maybe a red. Just do some quick lines. Lovely. Okay, that'll do. So we've got our 2 frames and they have both been decorated and they're ready to go into the concertina pieces, which will go at the side. Good to go. Now it's the really fun creative bit, because now what we're going to do is we're going to start cutting things out and we're going to start cutting and sticking essentially. All we're doing now is cutting and sticking. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a couple of little birdies from my bird book. I would say it's just a great idea for any kind of craft to get yourself to like a charity shop and buy a couple of really old books that are super cheap because no one wants them, that have got like pictures of birds in or stuff like that and loads of old writing, because they're so good for cutting and collaging and this sort of thing. So I'm going to cut out a couple of little birdies and they're going to go in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out some bits from magazines as well. So I kind of want some, I mean, I'm wondering if I could use these guys, even though they've been chopped up. I think I could probably get away. Let's use those for now. Let's use this one anyway, because I think we don't need the back of the tail, because we're going to stick it, if we stick it into like one of the panels, then it's like it's sticking out, isn't it? Now, again, you can cut out much more neatly than I am going to at this point, mainly for the purposes of time. So there we go, we've got our first birdie. And I mean, you can definitely stick some things on your background. So like you could stick that one there, for example. Can we get away with this one? I think he's too chopped up, isn't he? Let's try one more. I'm going to get one more little bird. That yellow one's quite cute. A serin. This is called a serin. I'm going to cut that one out very quickly. Okay. Yeah, so these videos, although we're live right this second, they are available for you to watch at any time. And I think a lot of people will watch this and then go back to it. So you don't have to stick with me, because I am flying through this because there's so much to get through. But the joy of this is you can always watch this live session, watch what I'm doing, get an idea of what you need. And then if you go back to re-watch it, you'll be able to sort of pause it and take your time, because I'm going at lightning speed here. Bear in mind, when I did this the other day with my child, we were probably doing it for maybe 3 or 4 hours. And I'm kind of squishing it all into 1 hour. So I'm doing it as quickly as I possibly can. But as long as you get the kind of process and the kind of dimensions and the idea, you're fine. Okay, so we've got our 2 little birdies, although I've realised they're both facing the same way. So they're both going to be, one of them's going to have to be at the top and one's going to have to be at the bottom. That's okay. And then what you want to do is get yourself maybe like an old magazine. You could use like a magazine, one of the free ones you get in the supermarkets, that sort of thing. And you're sort of going to go through it. I've already cut some bits out, but you're looking for sort of like objects or things that would act as sort of like patterns or background information, essentially. So for example, let's see if Rosie can go through where she put the cutouts. 1 second. You will find, where did I put them? Ah, here they are. Yes, here we go. Hiding under the oil pastels. So much stuff going on. Okay, so we've got things like trees. I really liked, so there was one page in this magazine that was showing like plates that you can get that look a bit like vegetables. So this one that looks like cabbage leaves, and I thought they would make fantastic sort of patterns. You'll see I've used them in this one. So let's see if I can point. So this guy here, this guy here, this one at the back here, they're all kind of cutouts from that same page of that magazine. So that sort of thing I really like. Lampshade is quite fun. This one I've kept the full page so you can see. This is like a recipe for something, and then it's on this beautiful sort of like pattern doily, and I thought that would be a lovely thing to stick in there. So just that sort of thing, you know, you want stuff that you can cut out that is a shape, but isn't necessarily of anything particularly obvious, if that makes sense, because you don't want it to be like, you don't want it to stand out and look a bit weird. You just want it to sort of blend in and add to the sort of layers of the whole thing. So we've got a few of these. Oh, I got this as well. This is like a cream bun. Liked that. I thought that was fun. And like this is like a tile. Anything like that is fine. And they're going to go in. So we've got, let's see, we've got all our weird little cutouts from our magazine. We've got our two little birdies. You could also add in some more sort of bits of your old book if you wanted. They're all going to go in amongst your frames, your back panel, and your concertina. But also, and that's the main part of this, I'd say the main bulk, is your cutouts from your abstract painting that we did earlier. So I've got a few different ones here from just random bits that I've done. And essentially, you're going to cut out loads of shapes. You can see here where I've cut out a leaf. And you're going to just go crazy with your cutting. Got loads of different ones here. And you're going to do leaves. Leaves. We're just going to do loads of leaves. Leaves, but in very different shapes. So I'll show you a few very quickly so that we can get sticking. I'm going to just go in with the scissors, but I would recommend, if you're not confident with cutting out with scissors, is turn your piece over and draw some shapes with pencil and cut out that way. In fact, I'll do that very quickly on one of these so you can see what I mean. So you might go, I'll do a few different shapes so you can see. And then I'll cut all of those out for you. What else have we got? Oh yeah, we can do some thin ones as well. So I've got a few different ones here. I'm just trying to make sure I've not missed anything. I mean, there's loads of different shapes you can do, and I will cut some out, but I've done this with pencil. So you've got I guess like a petal shape, so pointed at the bottom and round. You've got pointy at each end. This guy here, which is sort of like a, I don't know what that is, but I like drawing the shape, so we'll do that. Also, what I found is if you do sort of straight edges, they're easy to cut out because you can do them in chunks, whereas if it's sort of wiggly lines, it can get quite difficult. And then we can do very, very thin ones, and you'll see when we cut them out how fabulous they look. So this has been drawn onto this piece here. I'm going to cut them out now, but I'm going to do it this way and then reveal each leaf to you, because I think you'll agree they look fantastic. And again, we don't have to be neat. So let's just put those to one side so you can't see what they look like. And then it'll be a nice surprise when I show you. Move all this excess to one side. So these spiky ones, you can sort of do it bit by bit like this. Just making sure my arms were in shot then. You could actually see what I was doing. Usually I'd be doing this like really close to my face so I could see it, but I'm having to like reach my arms out so you can see it on the camera. And I have to just keep checking that I'm not bringing it all super close to the to my face. Okay, and then one last one, just do my little thin one here. I'm just like putting the rubbish bits over there out of the way, otherwise I'll get in a right tiz. Okay, so I'm going to reveal them now. So here's the first petal. Let's see what it looks like. This is really exciting because you never know what it's going to look like. So this one is beautiful. I wonder if it's going to, see if I can make it focus a bit better. But we've got some glitter on there. You've got some zigzaggy bits. And then this one, they're all going to be completely different. Like they couldn't possibly look the same because of all that mark making you did at the beginning. So now it all makes sense as to why we're using all those different things. Beautiful. And then if you do a couple in different sort of colour schemes, you're going to get like different things then. So if I do one of these ones, this is going to look different now because I've used different sort of colours on this page. So then what you can do is you can then sort of layer them together. So this one's got lots of yellows and greens, and this one's got lots of purples, and then together they'll just look beautiful. Also, this is why I've added sort of glitter and metallic paint to a lot of these, because it will shine in the light, adding more texture. And you can do lots of different shapes, however you feel. I'll do some very, very thin ones that will sort of look like grass. Beautiful. They look so good, don't they? So pleased. And you don't really have to use much, you don't get much waste out of it if you're doing the thin grassy bits as well. You're sort of using all the bits that you otherwise wouldn't have used. Oh, that's a nice one. It's a nice thin one. Okay, let's go in. Oh, let's do some of this one that I've already cut out of. And you probably can notice from here, from the wiggly edges, this was the middle of one of my panels. So when we made our frames earlier, I used the middle bit to cover, so you've got no waste. Perfect. You're also recycling at the same time. So I'm going to try and do a freehand one of those sort of like spiky ones that I did without drawing it. Let's see how we get on. Not too bad. So that's all right. Okay. Do some more shapes, and you can sort of go with whatever you have left over. You can kind of make the leaves out of the sort of excess bits you've got and just sort of cut them down to size. So I'm just doing a pile of these. If I need more, I can always cut more out, but for now that seems okay to me. I can always go back to it. I've got plenty of options. If you have covered sort of 2 A4 sheets with your paint and your mark making, that's going to make more than enough leaves and foliage to make one of these cards. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide where to start putting things. The first thing that I'm going to do, I think, is add some foliage to my background, maybe add some of my cutouts that I got from the magazine. I might stick this guy on here actually, just to give it a bit of something. And then I'll start constructing so you can actually see what it looks like when it comes together. But you can see the reason why I'm sort of trying to think about what to put on the back panel, because once I start to put all the panels together, that's when it gets tricky, because you don't want to, you know, you don't want to break anything whilst you're trying to reach through, that sort of thing. I might stick this fun little jug. This might go here. I know what I might do. Let's do the jug on here. And then we'll start doing some foliage around it. So I'm just going to stick that there. I mean, what you could also do is, if you wanted to go one step further, if you had like printed out photographs of like family members and friends, you could cut them out and stick them in and make them part of the collage. That would look great. I might do that. I might make one of those. It's my dad's birthday tomorrow. He will not appreciate if I made him one of these cards at all. I should have made one for my mum's birthday, but you know, we'll see. So let's now start. I'm going to start sticking some foliage down. Now, the great thing about these spiky ones is you can bend the edges up and you don't need to stick them down. So you're already creating some 3D, get some 3D stuff going on. And so once you've stuck things down, you can then be conscious about where you're going to put things on the panels because you don't want them to sort of fully overlap. I think I'm going to stick these like the grassy ones down. And then they can stick out like that. Hopefully you can sort of see the 3D element through the camera. I know it's not the best camera in the world. Oh, and the only problem with Pritt Stick I find is it's not quite sticky enough. It's good enough to stick the paper and card down for sure. But if you have got the time, I'd maybe try using PVA if you can. But this is okay for now. I mean, that's sticking down okay, isn't it? Okay. So I'm not going to stick any more foliage down yet because I want to start constructing the actual piece together. So I'm going to move my panels out of the way. I'm going to place this down like this. I'm going to get my concertinas and I'm just going to make sure that they're kind of pointing in the opposite directions, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that happen. I'm not very good at science or maths. Let's try it like this. So I've got my two edges and I'm going to stick them. That's it. I'm going to turn this round and I'm going to stick this onto the back of my card. Can you see like that? The way I'm going to do this, because this can get quite fiddly, is I'm going to start with the Pritt Stick and I'm going to do that, glue that side and then stick it down like that. So it's behind the back panel. Stick that into place. And then I'm going to do the same with this one, whilst bashing the camera, obviously. Stick that down as best I can. And then that sort of fixes it into place. Again, if you've got the time and the energy to use PVA, this will stick a bit better. But this will do for now. So can you see it's now on the back of there? But also on top of that, I'm going to get some of this brown masking. So this is like it's masking tape, brown masking tape, or it's like you can usually find it online as like eco-friendly parcel tape. And I find this is really good for crafts because it's brown. It sort of blends in quite nicely. It's really good and sticky, and it's got that sort of papery. It's not shiny, so you can draw over it. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting a little bit either side to secure over the edge to hold it into place. So when I turn it over, it will look a little bit like that. Yes. And then you should be able to stand that up now. And it might be a little bit wonky, especially if like the paint's dried or whatever. This one is not quite in. You might need to, this is another good reason to use Pritt Stick, is that you can kind of like move it around if you need to. So this one's not quite where I want it to be. So I can sort of stick it back into place, and you just want it to sort of stand up really as best as you can, like so. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put your frames in. So I'm just wondering if this isn't standing up because this is not quite. I'm just going to chop the edge off this, see if it helps with the standing up of the card. Yeah, that's better. That's better. So you can always cut and paste if you need to, do some cutting to make it work. So now we've got our concertinas in place. The first thing that I'm going to do is just consider if there's anything I want to stick in the back bit before I put my first panel in. So what I'm actually going to do is you can stick things on these bits as well as your frames. So I'm going to do my first little birdie, and I'm going to have my first little birdie down here like this. And because it's on the concertina, you're not going to see it. I'm just going to use a small bit of the tape to stick it down. And that's going to go on there. I'm going to put him at the bottom. And then I think my yellow one's going to go at the top near the front. So now this will stick out like so. And then we can put, I'm going to stand this up and we can put our first panel into place. So I'm going to go with, you can decide if you've done different colours, you can decide which frame you're going to have at the front and which you're going to have at the back. So we can decide if we want the red one at the front. Yeah, I think we'll go for red at the front. So I'm going to put the green one in next. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try, you know, before when I tried to say, we tried to make the concertina the same sort of shape, the same width. That's why. So we can put our panels in the same sort of place. Now you can probably tell this bit is the most fiddly. It's quite hard to get it into place. But again, we can tape it down. We can use the Pritt stick first. As long as they're sitting sort of in the middle. I mean, they could go at an angle. There's no reason why they shouldn't. That would still work really nicely, I think. It would still look great. But I think just for like structurally, you kind of want, so this has got 1.5. They're should be sitting in the right place. So I'd probably stick this down, but I'm just going to tape it down for now, again for sort of time reasons, so that we can get through it. You want it to sit in the corner of your concertina so that it doesn't warp. And I mean, I'm not making this look very glamorous because this bit is the most fiddly bit, I would say. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's fine. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to stick that on there. Okay, and then we'll do the same at the bottom. So again, we'll just get a little bit of tape and we'll rip that in half. And I would probably take, again, I'd stick this down with Pritt stick as well. But I'm doing this speedily as I can. I'm trying to make it look really easy, and it's not, it's just very fiddly. Okay, so then you've got your first frame in position, and now you can start adding more things to it. So this again will become a little bit fiddly because you've got 2 layers going on, but you'd maybe choose areas that haven't got 3D bits. So like this corner, for example, hasn't got much going on. So I'm going to go in with some of the stuff, some of the cutouts. I think I'm going to use some of the leaves. Maybe we'll stick one of these spiky guys in there. And then stick that in the corner. But we all want it to sort of stick out into the middle, if that makes sense. You kind of want it all sort of pointing inwards until you get towards the end. We'll maybe stick one of these ones in. I'll have it sticking out like that. What else do we want? I kind of want my little cream cake somewhere. Maybe that can be up there, look. In the middle, that'd be fun. So you're adding your bits round the wobbly bit. Does that make sense? And I'd probably add more to this. I would say that at this point, but just for time purposes, I'm going to stick my front panel on so that we can have like a finished product. And you're going to make sure your concertina is all sitting nicely and sort of flatten it. Come on now, play ball. And then we can stick our front panel on as best we can. And if you get overlaps of the card, that's fine, because we can cover it with all of our collage. We can stick all of our like leaves and stuff on, right? So for this one, I think I am going to use some glue just because it's the front panel. I don't want it to fall apart at the last moment. But hopefully you'll appreciate that you can spend much more time on this. You don't have to do this that quickly. This was quite ambitious to try and teach you guys this in 1 hour. I am aware, but I think this is another one of those things. This is what you'll always find with my sessions. It's like I've seen these online. They look so impressive, and they look really difficult to do. And I think the problem with like when you're sort of looking on Pinterest and sort of searching for these sort of crafts, you look at them and you immediately think, well, there's no way I could do that. And so I guess why I do these sort of sessions is to say, actually you can, because they are really easy. all we've done is folded and stuck some card together essentially. And you don't have to be an artist, you don't have to be a beautiful painter. This is just about experimenting with colours and marks, and it will still look fabulous. So now we've got our front panel on, that's looking good. You've got a few overlaps of the green, which we can add stuff to. I need to stick my little yellow guy on. I'm thinking he might go right at the front actually. And in fact, you could always you could go over that corner, couldn't he? Let's do that. We're nearly there. We've nearly done it, guys. Okay, he can go over like that. Look, there he is. And then I think we need lots and lots of these kind of lovely cut out leaves. I would do loads and loads more of these leaves, by the way. I think the leaves that I've currently cut out is not nearly enough. You probably want double the amount, but just for time purposes, I'm just going to show you the sort of thing I would do. So I'd maybe collect maybe 3 together that I like the look of. They look nice together, for example, and you'd maybe consider where they might go. So like this corner, I think we'll go with, maybe let's go this corner because there's not that much going on. We need something in the middle here, I think, and then maybe something in this corner. Actually, everywhere. I've decided we need foliage everywhere, but I'll do what I've got. So you're just going to sort of decide where you want it, stick your first leaf down. Again, if you've got the time, do use better glue than I'm using. I mean, I'm just very haphazardly putting Britstick on it. It's fine. And then, is it this one I was using? Maybe stick that one up there. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Lovely. I'm going to just use all the bits here. I'm just wondering if I should use one of these guys. Maybe we'll put that one over there, but behind the frame. That would work, wouldn't it? So it's not on top of the frame. Yeah, that's looking good. And then we'll do these last leaves that we've got and we'll stick these down on this corner, I think. And then at least we've got a lovely finished product. Beautiful. And the great thing is, the sort of painting technique we did at the beginning, you can use for so many different things. It doesn't just have to be for this. There's loads of different stuff you could do with it. Just put this last thin one on here. Stick that right in the middle, and you can bend them as well so that they're even more 3D. And I've got one last leaf here. I might just stick that on the inside of the concertina. Because why not? Why not? Just throw everything at it. Stick that out there. Okay. And there we have it. Yeah, that's worked really, really well. Look at that. Beautiful. So we've got our back panel, which we've done our lovely painting technique with our card and added our marks with our thick pens and our crayons and our oil pastels. We've done our 2 pieces of A5, which we've concertinaed as samey as we can. It doesn't always work out. And then we've cut out our 2 frames with wiggly lines. We've got ourselves a lovely old book that we can chop up and collage. And then we've chopped up loads of leaves and lovely foliage shapes. And then we've cut out some weird stuff from magazines. And you are then left with your lovely 3D card. I'm going to get the other example to show you just because I spent more time on it and I'm more proud of it. And show you that one last time, just so you get an idea of the sort of thing you can create. I mean, with this one, I actually managed to get birds facing each other, which is quite nice. And there you have it. That's how you make a 3D tunnel card, peekaboo card, 3D card. 3D card is the 3D card. Really, really easy. Just using cutting and pasting, painting on stuff, cutting stuff out, having a good time. I've made a huge mess. I'm glad you can't see the rest of my desk. But I really loved making these. It was so much fun. I really loved making it with my kid as well. So it's another thing to encourage you to do if you've got kids that you can do stuff with. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed doing that. I've got to go and wash my hands now because they're all sticky. And I will be back soon with some more stuff. I think my next session I'm going to be doing Matchbox shrines, of which I've already been making demos for, so I'm very excited about that. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Have a lovely Thursday, because it is Thursday today, and thank you so much for watching. You can play this back in the sort of archives of all the arts and crafts bits if you want to pause it, so you can take your time. I've been Rosie Johnson, my business is Rosie and Ramona, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much. Bye.